Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of TechRise. I think we had a little bit of an audio problem in that opening sequence, or at least I did, but hopefully you got the gist of everything, even though we didn't have the kind of vibing, pumping music going from the very beginning. Happy Earth Day to everyone that is watching live today. And for those of you that are hopefully watching later, we have so many interesting climate and green tech founders coming from across the Chicagoland area. So we're excited to hear and share their stories with you today. For those of you who are new to TechRise, I am Desiree Vargas Wrigley, a two-time Latina founder here in Chicago and executive director of TechRise by P33. TechRise is an initiative started in part with Verizon to help secure funding and access to capital, networks, and knowledge for founders of color. We specifically started with our Black and Latino founders, and this year we're extending to all BIPOC and all women identifying founders. So if you know anyone with a great idea, or you know someone in your community who's building something awesome that has a tech connection of any kind, we would love to have you on the stage, because it's basically a 20% chance at winning somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000. So it's really great friends and family stage funding. And the way it works is that each week, founders take the stage. They have 4 minutes to pitch, followed by 4 minutes of Q&A from judges that are from Chicago and from across the country who are experts in this field. And then at the end of the session, the judges go away for a few minutes. They choose the winner, and then they announce it real time at the end of the segment. So make sure you stay on and get to see the kind of big surprise. We also invite guest speakers to come on during that deliberation, so you can hear things that are happening across the Chicago tech ecosystem. And today we have ones related to climate tech. So it's going to be exciting. So with that, I'm going to welcome on our judges. So first we have Ryan Jeffrey, Managing Director at Generator Sustainability. Ryan is an experienced entrepreneur, investor, and advisor who helps leaders and organizations do their best work. With over a decade of experience founding and building high-growth organizations, Ryan is focused on supporting early-stage companies at the forefront of our climate and environmental crisis as Managing Director of Sustainability at Generator. He's a 3-time founder, one of which was acquired. Congrats. Investor, board member, and advisor to numerous startups, including being one of my advisors and investors at Parachute. So Ryan, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
All right.
Great to be here.
Next, we have Lauren Densham. She's head of impact at EnergizeVC. Lauren is responsible for leading Energize's ESG and impact initiatives and supporting their portfolio with strategy development, execution, and reporting. Prior to Energize, Lauren led ESG initiatives for KPMG and key clients across public, private, and nonprofit sectors. She's worked with leading asset owners, corporations, and private equity clients on their approach to ESG and sustainability and development, including helping one of the largest global asset managers develop its climate strategy. So Lauren, it's awesome to have you here. And then our final judge is Stefano Galiasso. He's Senior Associate at Energy Capital Partners. And Energy Capital Partners and Vic are also our guest speaker today. So we're going to hear a lot about the new fund. Stefano has 10 years of energy engineering experience and more than a decade of technical and consulting experience in energy engineering with utilities. He has consulted both commercial and university venture funds and has degrees in engineering and management. So Stefano, it's great to see you again. We shared office for a while, so it's nice to have you finally on TechRise. All right.
Thanks. Good to be here.
With that, I think we're ready to get started, and we're on time, which is always the best way to start. So I'm going to kick us off, and we're going to bring up Sanza Kazadi with Kazadi Enterprises.
All right, thank you. All right, so hi, I'm Sanza Kazadi. I'm the founder and founding CEO of Kazadi Enterprises. Thank you for having me. So in the US, commercial refrigeration systems produce about 500 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year. That's about the same as 100 million cars. And on top of that, they leak about 25% of their refrigerants into the atmosphere. But for small family-owned grocery stores, the real metric that they're concerned with is how much it costs to run their refrigerators. Oftentimes, small stores can spend a lot more on electrical power to run their refrigerators than they take home in profit. We're going to do something about that. At Kazadi Enterprises, we've developed a unique refrigeration process that reduces costs of electricity by 90%. It takes in plain water, which doesn't necessarily have to be potable, and environmental heat as our energy source, and then produces only water vapor as a byproduct. Here's how it works. Input water combines with our concentrated salt solution in order to do work. It's at this step that we get the cooling that runs the refrigeration. Over time, the salt solution becomes diluted and needs to be reconcentrated or recharged. So we take the dilute solution, put it through our desiccator, run air through it, and the heat in the air drives the water off and reconcentrates the solution so it can be used again. We're aiming for small markets initially, and then eventually to the larger supermarket market. Small markets are between $2 and $30 million of annual revenues, and they're run by their owner operators. They have an estimated TAM of $150 million. Once we get established in those markets, we'll move up to the corporate grocers and the convenience stores, which have a combined market of $750 billion and an estimated TAM of $24.6 billion. So again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the money that's used for refrigeration and move it from the cost column to the profit column. And this will increase the profits across the industry with an average of 60%. So our business model has two revenue streams. One of them is licensing. So we license our technology to OEMs that build the refrigerators and sell them. Our first OEM is B Medical Systems out of Luxembourg, and we're working with them now. We will then also lease our recharge solutions to the supermarkets that are using our refrigerators, and that'll create another revenue stream. In the next couple of months, we'll complete building our prototype with B Medical Systems refrigerator, so upgrading their technology. Then we'll execute beta test agreements with our partners, do a JDA with B Medical Systems, and eventually get to leased equipment and licensing agreements. We've had a lot of traction in the last couple of years with a lot of grants providing us non-dilutive funding and also getting funding from the sale of my house. We have significant IP portfolio with several patents and patent applications. We've got partners, both commercial and technical. In terms of our competitive landscape, there are a lot of companies that are working on refrigeration now. It's a big area and there is a lot of improvement, but none of our competitors can boast a cost reduction and emissions reduction of up to 90%. And also our system works when the power goes out. We have an experienced team of innovators and managers. We have great advisors, and we also have world-class research collaborators. So what we're planning to do in the future is empower supermarkets by giving them the possibility of using carbon-free refrigerators that reduce their costs of refrigeration by up to 90% and increase their profits by up to 60%. And this will help them serve their communities better. Thank you.
Great job. Okay, judges, you can come on and we can start the questions. Ryan, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you. That was great. I appreciate you walking us through that. Can you, really quick, I have actually two questions and I'll just ask one after the other. Can you just talk a little bit more about your background and what led you to this idea overall? And then the second is, you mentioned you had a partner that you're working with right now. Do you have revenue from that partner, or sort of, or is it just an LOI, or what's the relationship with that partner?
Right. Okay. So I'll deal with the first question first. So the long answer is that my mom moved to the Democratic Republic of Congo in 1999, and she bought a house in a completely unincorporated area, no roads, water, gas, nothing, no electricity. And I was really worried about how she was going to stay cool, because the summers can get up to like 35, 40 degrees Celsius sometimes, which is really hot. So I started working on this technology back then. I carried out all the basic research because, lots of people said that it violated certain laws of physics, which it doesn't. And so it was an uphill battle. That's what led me to the technology. Eventually sold my house so I could work full time on this. And that led to the company. The partner is B Medical Systems. And what they've done is they've written a letter of support for us. They've sent us one of their refrigerators and asked us to upgrade it. Once that is completed, then we expect to do a JDA. It'll be a paid JDA, and so that'll be our first revenue.
Great.
Lauren, you want to go next?
Sure. One question I would have is, how does the kind of size and of the system that needs to be installed compared to current refrigeration units? And is that a concern for how small businesses could incorporate it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the part that's inside the actual refrigerator will be about the same as a conventional refrigerator in terms of size, size and its footprint. There will also be an external part. That's the part that uses environmental heat to do the recharge. And that one for a supermarket size grocer would be about 1 or 2 parking spaces. So it could either be on the roof if you have roof space, or it can be in the parking lot.
Okay. Stefano?
Yeah, thanks. Very, very interesting. First of all, I actually have a question, like you said, kind of before. How does it not violate the laws of physics in a sense? So like, it sounds like a desiccant basically. So I can see how you can take off some latent heat, but how do you actually kind of go down to cool the air so that you can refrigerate the space?
Yeah, sure. So the best way to explain this is by comparison to an existing technology called absorption refrigeration.
Okay.
So absorption refrigeration, you use desiccants to pull off enough water to basically get things to get really cold. Sometimes you can, like the ice trade used to be based on these absorption refrigerators. So you can get it to freeze. So you can get it really, really cold if you want to. In terms of the recharge, what makes ours different from an absorption refrigerator is that we use environmental heat to do the recharge.
Yeah.
So it goes from being a net energy user to a net energy producer. And that's our big aha moment. Now, the reason that always works is it's a complicated explanation, but it has to do with the hydrologic cycle. It basically plugs into the hydrologic cycle, which is a cycle whereby water moves around the planet. And that in turn plugs into the energy flux from the sun that is always here. So we heat during the day, we cool during the night. That's an energy flux, and we plug into that. So yeah.
So would it work also in places that are like very hot? Like that get very cold during the day, like in Chicago in the winter where you still need refrigeration inside, or?
Yeah. So there are two ways to kind of look at that. First of all, yes, it would work in cold places. When it's too cold and ice, water freezes, we would change our working fluid to alcohol. So because that freezes at a lower temperature. We're also kind of contemplating, using the cold of the air outside when it's available to run those refrigerators, which to me seems like a great hybrid solution. So
great job, Sanza. And thank you so much. So we are going to next welcome Mona, Fang, and Karma Trade. Lauren, I'm going to ask you to go video off. Right, Mona, you can start whenever you're ready.
Hi, we're Karma Trade, and we take secondhand stores online. So we all have clothes in our closets. You might think once you buy an item and wear it, it might not be worth that much. But in reality, secondhand fashion is a $47 billion market in the US alone. Who knew your closet had this much potential? And it gets even crazier. There are 280,000 businesses that sell thrift, vintage, and luxury goods in retail stores and pop-ups. 200,000 of them do not have online stores. To fix this, we built the easiest way to take secondhand stores online. It's easy because in 2 seconds, sellers can list an item and automatically distribute through their Instagram shop and Facebook Marketplace. We make online and retail become one with our smart QR tags, and you can pick up in store or get your items delivered through local last mile delivery. Think of us as DoorDash, but for local secondhand fashion. You can get a last minute dress or blazer for any event needs. In the last 2 weeks, we spoke to 30 stores, 20 signed up immediately. At this rate, we can easily get to 1,200 stores in the next year. We understand this problem because we felt it ourselves. While I was studying aerospace engineering at UIUC, my co-founder and I opened and operated a thrift store. Brandon is a brilliant software engineer, and together we did a little bit of rocket science. We built our own system to list thousands of unique items online, and it worked because it nearly doubled our revenue. We can do exactly the same thing with these next 20. Using their average retail sales data, we can make $200,000 from selling fees alone. Our target areas of expansion are Chicago, New York, LA, SF, and Portland, where secondhand fashion is currently booming. We're living out of Miami, working out of a tech accelerator, but our store is 2 hours south of Chicago. For our upcoming 1,200 stores, if we undershoot and lift 10% of their retail sales alone through our platform, we can make $2.4 million in annualized revenue. Current e-commerce neglect businesses with single SKUs. Platforms such as Shopify and Etsy are incredibly time-consuming. They rely on keywords for distribution. This means that shop owners have to spend hours, if not days, out of their website, their weeks listing items on their website. On Karma Trade, we do all the work, so the seller does none. Buyers find item through machine learning tags on product images and through geolocation. Search happens through the photo and the store location itself, not the seller typing words. We're also hiring for a full stack engineer and UI UX designer. Anyone watching this, if you want to build technology that fundamentally changes how the world experiences fashion, please reach out to us. With the TechRise funding, you will help us expand the market in Chicago with over 50 retailers and pop-ups that we've vetted so far. There are 80 billion new items created each year. Half of it ends up in landfill in the same year. Our vision is to build the largest decentralized secondhand marketplace in the world, a true circular economy. We are Karma Trade, and thank you very much.
Great job. All right, judges, you want to come on and we go presentation mode off. Lauren, you want to kick us off?
Thank you. Sorry, just trying to come off mute. Thank you, Mona. That was a great presentation. One of my, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about kind of how the SKUs work with those QR tags and how that differs, for example, from other kind of secondhand online fashion retailers like ThredUp, for example, that are kind of selling secondhand clothing online.
So our distribution points are through other secondhand stores themselves, so that allows for the last mile delivery. But for ThredUp, they have a warehouse where they store items and process it. But in this case, the warehouse is also the retail stores. So the QR codes allow the shop owners easily list and unlist items at checkout. Additionally, for anybody who's shopping vintage, for like say an items from the 1960s, a lot of people don't know that it is from the 1960s to justify say a price point of like $200. So the QR code also facilitates that interaction.
And who are your last mile partners?
It'll be Uber.
Okay, thank you.
Stefano, you want to go next?
Yeah, happy to. Very, very, very interesting. I was wondering from a unit economics perspective, what is so like the store gets additional sales, obviously. What is your take rate and what is your cost, like compared to your cost of acquiring a customer, retaining and everything, based on your projections?
Yeah, great question. The first question was, what is our take rate? Our take rate is 10%. And then on average, they do about a total retail sales volume of $200,000. But if you're in New York, they do about upwards of like $500,000. Looking at that, the cost of onboarding, we help them list their initial 50 products for free. So for us, that cost is about $100. Yeah, and our sales cycle for a single store is about like 3 days. Well, if we speak to the sponsor immediately, they 2 out of 3 they sign up, and then otherwise it takes about like 3 days for them to get to their sponsor.
You just call them up and say, hey, are you interested in this?
We are door-to-door sales focused. So we're really working out of the Miami market right now, and for any city that we're expanding to, we'll be having a ground sales team.
Cool, thanks.
Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Mona. That was a great presentation. Appreciate it. And you answered one of the questions that I had just around your sales process. But since this is a network effect business where you're reliant both on the businesses and then the consumer on the back end, can you just walk us through how you're acquiring the end consumer then? Is that reliant on the business that you acquire, or are you acquiring them via other channels? And what does that look like overall?
Yeah, one of the primary reasons we saw a need for this was that these businesses have like tens of thousands or 50s thousands of like views per month on Google Maps, but they don't have a website to be able to point people to show like, hey, this is our selection in store. So one of our primary traffic channels will be through there, as well as Instagram. A lot of these sellers say DM me to purchase, which I think so that's why we're helping them to list through their Instagram channels. Now On our platform itself, it allows for discoverability in multiple stores. So if you look for one store, then you can shop 20 more in the next like 10 minutes without having to visit all of them at the same time. It should be really challenging in a single day for any consumer.
All right. Great job, Mona. Thanks so much. And next, we're going to have Edwin Williams join us from Photonix. Ryan, you mind going video off? And Edwin, can you come on video?
Sorry about that.
Oh, there you are. Perfect.
Oh.
All right, we can see everything, so we're ready when you are.
Photonix solar lawnmower, solar power, clean and green. Next slide. Solution.
Whoops. Hopefully we'll get this fixed out in a second.
Gas lawnmowers release carbon emission that's contribute to global warming, potential long-term health problems in individual plants. Gas lawnmowers have a tendency to leak oil, which creates mess over the yard, garage, driveways, or sidewalks and take time to clean up. Solution. Photonix is developing a solar power lawnmower that will replace gas power version, providing a greener alternative for cutting grass in an eco-friendly way, eliminating oil leaks, messy caused by traditional gas lawnmowers, offering customers cost-efficient, sleeker, and more modern option, in addition to eliminating those annoying trips to the gas station for fill-ups. Next slide. How it works. 750 watts DC motor direct drive. We are using 2X batteries of 12V15A, giving us a 12V15A PB lead acid battery. The solar panel on the model is a 30 watts, which generates a 1.2 charging current. In addition to our charging station, our solar lawnmower comes with a large integrated solar panel where there is daylight available. The solar cells will enable the mower to extend cutting periods and needs recharging use. Next slide. Market size, 23.5 billion in 2022 with a 7.4 compound annual growth rate, and by 2027 it will be 33.6 billion. Next slide. Go to market, DIY solar battery power lawnmower equipment, replacing gas power tools to reduce carbon emission. Who? Homeowners, residential complex, commercial property, golf course, large parks. How? Direct to consumers through our website, wholesale through partnership with equipment retailers, where United States and global. On traction, we did a pre-launch with 6,000 email sign up with $1 deposit. Next slide. Competitive landscape, better user experience, cut lawn in a shorter time, low energy power consumption, extended battery life, intelligent user interface display screen, large integrated solar panel with solar cells that extended cutting time and daylight. A fertilized compartment will have a on and off switch to spread the knob to control the amount of grass fertilizer to be spread. Next slide. Milestone. With the TechRise funding, we will run a successful campaign. We will get first pre-orders in 3 years. Photonix will be the leader in solar mower segment, and we will keep innovating technology, introducing iteration offerings. Next slide. Why us? First mover advantage. Photonix will be first to market with a DIY solar lawnmower. Why us team? Edwin Williams, I am an experienced landscaper and inventor with a degree in electrical engineering. Tamika Porter has a degree in environmental science. Why now? The awareness of climate change and its impact on the environment is slowly seeping into the minds of many people. More consumers are taking action at home
Edwin,
to do
I gotta
that.
cut you off. I'm sorry. I know we gave you a little bit of a grace because of the slide mess up in the beginning, but I gotta get the judges on here to ask some questions.
Okay.
So,
All right.
judges, come on up. And Stefano, if you could kick us off.
Thanks, Edwin. Very interesting. I was wondering, so there's also electric mowers like battery powered. Are you using the solar panel to extend the range of batteries, or are you using it to charge the battery and basically substitute the plug?
We using the solar panels to extend the range of the batteries.
Okay. Provided that you're successful with the crowdfunding campaign, have you considered like how you're going to go about manufacturing? Like, have you looked into who could be a manufacturing partner? Like,
yeah, so I already have a manufacturing partner down in China. So I already got that sorted out already.
Thanks.
Do you have a sense of kind of how long it would extend the life of existing batteries, and what kind of target audience that would be most appealing to? Would it be able, if you were a landscaper that was cutting grass all day, would it be able to extend that long?
It will extend it from 5 to 10 years. So most of the consumers that will benefit and more will be the DIY consumers, the consumers that does their own yard work. So yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Hey, Edwin, thanks for the presentation. Appreciate it. Can you just walk us through really quick the signups that you got, the 6,000 that paid the $1? How'd you acquire them? What was the process for finding them? And where are they in terms of kind of actual customers down the road?
We did Facebook marketing, Facebook and Instagram marketing. So we basically just did a pre-launch to gain traction, to get people to sign up. So when we go live, we would have the customer already on board.
Got it. And sorry if you mentioned this, but how much are you planning on selling the lawnmower for? And how does that compare to
$8.99. $8.99.
Thanks.
All right. Any last questions for Edwin?
The only other question was, you mentioned in the kind of comparison that the performance of this, that you could cut grass more quickly. I just was wondering what was driving that improvement.
Because of because of the solar cells inside the solar panel. So it was give us a extended time. So
got it. Thank you.
Don't worry, we all get nervous doing this, so it's fine if you forget your words. I do it all the time. But great job, Edwin, and thanks for overcoming that little bit of a technical blip in the very beginning. And next we have Climastry coming on, and we'd like to welcome Jake Narciso-Stevens to the stage. Hey, Jake.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. So speaking of manufacturing, how many of you would feel comfortable leading a decarbonization program at a manufacturer today? Usually I get crickets, could be a few of you in the audience, but that's exactly what tens of thousands of engineers and project managers feel right now. Many less familiar with ESG than you all. And it's something I initially felt during 8 years of implementing sustainability projects at manufacturing plants across North America. It's also a constant source of stress for my friend Bailey here, a sustainability project manager at Fortune Company. Her leadership has signed on to a number of decarbonization commitments, and they're doing the basics like recycling and purchasing green energy. But Bailey knows that meeting their publicly stated commitments is impossible without addressing their Scope 3 emissions. So she asked her supplier to send their ESG data, and they do, in an Excel document that not only takes a while to make sense of, but isn't usable in its current form. So Bailey sends back an improvement plan, and her supplier sends her an ESG data package back. And the only issue with this, even though it solves the initial problem, it does increase costs for their supplier. And Bailey still doesn't know if her supplier is greening or changing in a positive way. And all of this has taken a month and still requires ongoing assurance. And now Bailey and the rest of her sustainability team has to rinse and repeat for the rest of their supply chain, which currently stands at about 5,000 companies for them. But now Bailey takes this information along with her team and stumbling through deadlines, preparing to disclose her ESG metrics incompletely, I might add, even after 5 years of progress as industry leaders. But the board and legal team approved the release to stakeholders and investors, along with regulators, who are now prepared to penalize them for greenwashing or immaterial statements. And the determinations of these stakeholders are now driving not just their reputation, but their access to ESG-linked financing as well, which as of last year, rose 53% year over year to $2.7 trillion of assets under ESG management. Where Climastry comes in is right here on this link between helping both parties disclose in a robust, real-time, and authentic fashion. Both Bailey and her supplier are asking questions that can be solved with the same platform, like whether the change is authentic, how to make the integration efficient, and how to maximize the invested resources. Both are asking or wondering if they have the right data, and also assessing what the impact to their systems, products, and financing is. Enter Climastry, where Bailey and her suppliers can check real-time progress, manage green projects and relevant data, calculate emissions, and discover new actions, technologies, and materials that are unique to their projects that will help them decarbonize. Our market niche is $55 billion in the US alone, and we'll capture it through a basic seat-based subscription model, a marketplace reference fee, and data fees, which we're working with regulators on as well. Zooming in on that marketplace fee, the required spend to reach current net zero transition requirements is $3 to $5 trillion a year. Am I out of time? Okay.
So we're going to put the judges on, and hopefully you can cover this in answering some of those questions.
Cool. All right, I'll come off. I'll stop sharing. Here we go.
All right, Ryan, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you. I think, Jake, you were going to get to this because I was just curious about how you differentiate versus other climate reporting or ESG tools and metrics. And by the way, I appreciate that you're concentrating on Scope 3 emissions and did a really good job of walking through the problem overall. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, framing the problem is the hardest part. I will say, and you kind of saw, am I allowed to share again? I'll just do it anyway, because this is important. This is the competitive matrix, right? So what we're focused on is where there's this crowded enterprise landscape where most listed companies have already implemented some sort of software system here. And what we're focusing on is, I think where our closest competitors are really focused on location-based carbon accounting. We're really focused on the transition planning required to get there. So providing that accounting, but not making it the focal point of our software. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yep, it does. Thank you.
Lauren, you want to go next?
And so just to make sure that I understand, so this software would be used for suppliers to outline their transition plans and to verify progress against those plans rather than just the GHG accounting.
Correct. Yeah. And ideally, we're partnering with the listed organizations to deploy to their suppliers and their suppliers, right? So being advocates for us.
And how do you mentioned kind of real-time tracking. How do you get the real-time, what data are you using? And do you have hardware sensors? How do you track what progress is actually being made?
Yeah, so for MVP, I will say that we're following industry standards at the moment, right? Because we're just starting. So we use impact functions that are multiplied against specific transactions related to a project that come out with emissions estimates. Those, as I'm sure you all know, have their own flaws and faults, but we do have plans, and I have another slide about this too, kind of a runway of growth in terms of the product, not the business. And IoT is on there. We think there's a huge opportunity for integration with existing platforms that collect this data. It's there. It's just a matter of aggregating it into a place that's organized and easy for auditors to check.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake, for your presentation. Very interesting. I was wondering around unit economics. So you're planning on charging $100 per month per seat. What are your assumptions on the value per customer and the cost to acquire the customer?
Yeah, so that $94 value per user, that's an enterprise level, price. Our SME, our target market, because remember we're targeting that tier 2 through basically 10, is $29 a seat. The $94 is really once we are up and running with our other functions when it comes to like disruption forecasting, scenario analysis, geospatial auditing, that kind of stuff. But the initial $24 a month will get you that emissions accounting, project management function, and the green procurement function, which is basically a machine learning algorithm that matches specific actions, technology suppliers to projects based on what they are. So that way project managers are having to dig for all that data.
And do you expect,
Sorry, you gotta cut us off. We're at the 8 minutes. Maybe you can jump on chat and answer a few more.
Thanks.
Yeah, happy to answer anything.
All right, great job, Jake. And finally, we have JustAir and we have Darren Riley.
Awesome.
Perfect. I'll jump right in. Hello, everybody. My name is Darren Riley. I'm the co-founder and CEO of JustAir. And growing up, my father always told me that I'm a product of my environment. An environment where each and every one of us takes 20,000 breaths per day in. And why this number is so important is because for many communities of color today, those 20,000 breaths could actually be working against their lives. And what you see in front of me are 2 communities on the south and west side of Chicago that had the highest rates of asthma inpatient hospitalization from children ages 1 to 19. But more importantly, behind the data point is a human being. Someone like my father, who actually grew up in a community not too far from this, grew up with symptoms of asthma, but unfortunately was not diagnosed until he was 27 and incarcerated. And I got to bear witness upon his release, not only the health impacts, but the financial impacts, because he's restricted to manual labor that required a healthy lung that he couldn't provide. Now, this problem just doesn't attack me personally in the communities that I represent, but more so, researchers have found that it costs US $600 billion. And let me clarify, air pollution costs US $600 billion annually. But the real issue is that many communities today often lack the proper data infrastructure required to understand what's going on in the breathing environment to deploy solutions to protect the most vulnerable communities, which is why we created JustAir. JustAir is a community insights platform that we're leveraging different tools and technologies to take the blindfolds off, understand what's really going on in our breathing environment so that we can move towards a more equitable breathing space for all. And like my good folks say, don't talk about it, let's be about it. So I'd love to walk down a couple of our opportunities that we've had so far. Starting with monitoring insights. We had a paid pilot in Grand Rapids, it's still going on today, in which a city that had only 1 air quality monitor now has 11. We discovered great disparities in between 2 neighborhoods in this paid pilot, and today we're working with community leaders and city officials to deploy strategies to curb some of these inequities. We also launched our first community dashboard, a dashboard where community members have the transparency that they deserve and also are alerted when there are poor air quality days. Moving on to mapping insights. How do we actually detect and understand where these pollutants are occurring? We had a paid contract, a subcontract for a major oil and gas company using our technology and mapping tools to automate these mapping technologies to pinpoint where there are certain leaks in the refinery. What I'm most excited about, not only this can be a repeatable solution for other oil refineries, but I'm most excited about we can use the same technology in our communities when there's infrastructure incidents so that we can more quickly, more readily address those issues and protect the lives of our loved community. And lastly, I want to talk about visualizing insights. First, let me set the stage that trucking traffic deals a great deal of pollution, creates a great deal of emissions. And believe it or not, that freight traffic tends to typically go through the Black and brown communities. And a lot of researchers have proven this. What we have done, hearing our communities from Detroit to Little Village in Chicago and other environmental justice groups in the Midwest, has influenced us to have a paid partnership with University of Michigan, where we create a computer vision algorithm to automatically detect the trucking traffic patterns from idling and trucking. And we're actually looking to deploy this in Southwest Detroit with a pilot. And this community does this currently today with a pen, a piece of paper, and a clipboard. Real quick, I'd like to highlight our team from environmental leaders and leading researchers in environmental justice and policy to operations, executive experience, and technical acumen. We have the right team. We're just under a year of operating. We have real traction, and we have concrete pipeline right in front of us around the corner. Happy to talk more about that later. We're in a political climate today where the timing is no better time than now. And last but not least, we have trust. From community members to health officials to different departments at the state and local level, and community advocacy groups like the NAACP, we are the trusted platform. And with this 25K, will allow us to get closer to our vision to ensure that no matter what skin color you're born to, what community you're from, you have equal access to clean air. Thank you.
Darren. All right, judges, you want to come on? And Lauren, you want to kick us off?
Thank you, Darren. That was a great presentation. I appreciate your insight and your work in this area. One of the questions for me was just about kind of your revenue model. Presently, are you targeting kind of government or community funding or nonprofits? And also would be interested in some of the commercial use cases that you'd mentioned in industry.
Absolutely. So our current revenue model, we definitely had a lot of non-dilutive capital. We do have some recurring mix in that earned capital that we have today in Grand Rapids. So our approach is really focused on, we know government is a little bit slower in terms of these processes, but right now it's really engaged with the community. Actually, there's an EPA grant that was around 20 million rewarded. We're part of 8 different city grants as a technical lead partner. And those are for 3 years, locked in revenue. Hopefully we'll get one of them, right? So that's really awesome. In terms of what I'm also excited about, I mean, our mission is really community first, but as you saw, we definitely got pulled in the conversation with oil and gas organizations that have, a real pain point, and we have a solution that can really meet that need. Right now, that was just a one-off contract, but these incidents and these problems, we're looking to think about more pricing models there. But today, it was a one-time contract, but we're really learning to build that business case here. That just happened this year, so we're in the early stages of that. Hope that helps.
Stefano, you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. To really, really inspiring presentation and great vision. Very happy to see that. I was wondering, I saw in that particular oil and gas example, you were looking at benzene. Do you use like an analyzer, or is it like a simpler sensor, like an environmental monitoring sensor? And what are some of the kind of KPIs that you're looking to collect? Yeah, I'll stop there.
Absolutely. I do also want to give some context that we are monitor agnostic. I started to learn that during our journey, is that people really respect our craft in terms of the data visualization tools. That being said, the tool that was used there is a very expensive instrument from the EPA. And so we just plugged into some of that software technology, their APIs, to pull this data in and generate the KMLs. And with so it's a high instrument for the mezzanine. Obviously, you use those same, kind of replace those with other VOCs. Other thing that we are using is wind, which I'm really excited to actually bring that into our community dashboard so we can use that same kind of visualization tool, our platform. So hope that answers the question.
Very cool.
Thanks, Darren. This was great, and it's obviously a great story, and it's awesome to see the evolution of JustAir as well. I'm just curious in terms of how you think about the business and growing it. Are you it's maybe both a how and a kind of what in terms of becoming more of a scalable tech solution versus kind of just this project-based diagnostic tool that you partner with cities on right now? What's your vision for where this can go?
Absolutely. Today, we are operating at more kind of recurring revenue model. We do have some one-off projects that are allowing us to get paid to develop product, but our whole vision is to be a suite of service, right? We want to enter a community or enter a city, say, hey, we have pollutant detection technology, we have traffic detection technology. We looked at did our analysis in your environment. We see that this might be applicable. We really see ourselves as building whatever technology is necessary to understand and breathe the environment. What we're doing right now is now that we have a couple products on our belt, and we also are waiting to hear back from the EPA with some grants that will give us some substantial revenue for different cities, is to test some of those models out. So move from the contract model to a more repeatable model for oil and gas and also the computer vision technology.
That's great. Thank you.
I gotta cut us off, but great job, Darren. Great to see you. And now I'm going to send the judges off to the very difficult problem or challenge of going to decide a winner for today. And I'm going to welcome onto our stage Vic Pascucci, the third managing partner at Energy Capital Partners. So Vic, you want to join me up here? Great to see you.
It is very good to see you too.
I'm going to give a quick bio on you. So Energy Capital Partners is the only early stage venture fund dedicated to ESG imperatives and digital transformation of the natural gas industry. And Vic is accountable for the day-to-day operations, strategic direction of the firm, and is a tenured venture capitalist with decades of broad experience creating and executing strategic venture capital programs. You manage venture investments at numerous multi-billion-dollar funds, including investing in, it looks like Coinbase, TrueCar, Care.com. You have top decile investment track record, 20 years of experience in financial services, $750 million in VC and M&A transactions, and you're on the board of ID.me, an advisor to Paceline. You're also a strategic advisor to IA Capital. So lots of great things under your belt, which actually leads me to, what made you make the transition from kind of traditional investing in any startup or any category over to Energy Capital Partners?
Yeah, I mean, we actually started the firm itself because we saw a definitive need in the market, and we saw that that need itself was going to have dramatic impact on the environment if we can help it. And so what we've seen within the sustainability investing in the ESG side, we've got lots of people focusing on electrification, which is definitely part of the solution, but not so many people focusing on natural gas and what we consider to be the green molecules. So lots of people looking at greening the electrons with electrification, but not a lot looking at working with the natural gas utility companies, people that bring heat, water heating into your home. And so we decided with our backgrounds, working with large corporations and our backgrounds building companies and working in these large regulated industries, how could we help these corporations access the innovation they need to future-proof their business and make a dramatic impact on the environment?
Yeah, that makes sense. And especially given the kind of international climate right now of energy prices, it's very, very timely. So hopefully the fundraise has been easy and you're ready to start make lots of
fundraisers are never easy, but
never easy. I know the founders watching should know that VCs have a similar pain with just more zeros.
Right.
But I'm curious, is there a kind of competitive advantage or a benefit to you guys building this in Chicago as opposed to anywhere else, or the Midwest, maybe, if that's easier?
Yeah, no, I think there's a definitive advantage that comes from Chicago. We actually have talking about pitching and raising money. Within our pitch deck to our investors, we have a whole page on Chicago and why Chicago is a great place to have this business. So, and that goes to everything, there's no reason for me to slide it. It's got a lot to do with the culture of what's here and the people that are building the companies and the opportunities that are here. This is a community that sticks with their business. It believes in what they're doing, and that level of authenticity translates to success, right? This area has the highest multiple on invested capital relative to the other industries, which is great. And we've got great institutions around us for what we do, specifically within ESG, with a focus around natural gas, renewable natural gas, and hydrogen. Some of our partners like the Gas Technology Institute, right in the Chicago backyard. We work with the local utilities here as well. And we've got 2 federal labs, which is jacking out great technology that's relevant, as well as all the universities. So there's a great advantage. And, you know, for folks like you and I that have been in this community for too long than we care to admit, like, to see where it's come to now, it's just awesome to be part of this next growth that's there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, at P33, we've been talking about, you know, regional priorities, and for a while that's been electric vehicles. But to your point, there's so much more to climate tech that the Midwest and Chicago specifically has an opportunity to capitalize on. And, you know, some of those we saw today. And Generator, Ryan's group, they have a bunch of interesting companies that are coming out of that kind of span from soil preservation to, you know, carbon capture to new solar panels. So there's a lot of interesting things happening. It makes me wonder, though, how do you go and find and connect with founders at the earliest stage? Because it seems like a capital intensive industry. And so how do these founders get off the ground, and how do they find you, or you find them?
A couple things to kind of, you know, unpack there. As far as the capital intensity, a lot of them are very capital intensive. But the good news is we're seeing greater capital come to this stage, especially at the later stages, when these companies start to put what we say iron in the ground to start manufacturing hydrogen or renewable natural gas projects or those types of capital intensive projects. That capital is there once they get there. So that's great to see. And then thanks to a lot of the advancements that we're seeing across the technology, whether it's the ESG side or the digital transformation side, it's actually more efficient, more cost effective to get these companies off the ground, to get them from that 0 to 1. So, you know, that's been fantastic. As far as how people find us, it's just kind of old school. It's like enterprise sales, right? So I've been doing this for a couple decades and have done a lot of investments. So, you know, I have a personal network of people that know me from co-investment and entrepreneurs. But there's also, like, I think, you know, you saw Stefano earlier here today. Between Stefano and Julie and my other partners that are in this fund, we do a ton of outbound, an enormous amount of outbound, reaching out to companies after we define the thesis and seeing who's there. So we spend a lot of time researching. And then guys like Ryan, who we've known from his other endeavors, is now doing something sustainability. It's great. You know, we help him out. He sends companies. And so it's a lot of that kind of old school inbound and outbound. But, you know, the fact that we have this unique thesis and then have enabled our fund to be this platform for innovation around the natural gas industry kind of differentiates us. So entrepreneurs and co-investors and accelerators and incubators have a different way to get to the industry that they didn't have before we founded the firm. Yeah,
no, and I think it is an indicator of what's happening just from a funding perspective across our ecosystem, right? I mean, you referenced relationships that have been around for a decade plus here, and now we're starting to see that there's verticalization in Chicago from a fund perspective that just wasn't really, I mean, it was sort of there before, but now we have it with you guys and S2G, and we have, you know, so much in the food and ag tech space, and Valor doing what they're doing with the sustainability fund. So it's exciting times here in Chicago, especially in this category. And it feels like you guys have really carved out a niche within it that has so much opportunity from an impact perspective, but also just from a revenue generating perspective and a returns perspective. So
yeah, and if you look at it, it's got like what John Tuff is doing at Energize, which is really focused on electrification, and then which is that pure vertical, and then our vertical over here, which is on those green molecules, which is around kind of natural gas and decarbonization from a different angle. And the reality is, and maybe we'll talk about this a little later, it's kind of that power of and that the city's got and that we need to really hit these climate goals, right? It can't be an or solution. You can't be like a religious zealot of, oh, we have to electrify everything. And nor can I be one saying, oh, no, it's natural gas or nothing. Like, we each have to come together. We each have our own use cases. And it's the power of and that's going to serve all communities across that socioeconomic pattern, all countries, because different countries are going to have different needs. And that's what's going to take to make the difference that we want to make.
I'm assuming that means that you invest across the country and maybe across the globe, not just Chicago, right?
Yeah, so we do North America and international. We can invest up to 30% internationally. So there's been great advancements around decarbonization that are happening in Denmark, that are happening in the UK, that are happening in Italy. And we want to make sure we bring those over here. And we like to be that outlet for those companies as they make that transition over the pond.
That makes a ton of sense. So maybe to make this a little bit more accessible to the audience, can you describe some of the technologies that you either have invested in, looking at, like to help people understand the solutions that are coming out of this vertical?
Right. So For us on the ESG side, the one investment we've made to date is Cemvita Factory. So Cemvita Factory is leveraging synthetic biology to decarbonize heavy industries, right? To decarbonize the things that were really hard to decarbonize. And so they're using actually just Mother Nature and CO2 as a feedstock to decarbonize things like aviation fuel, to make plastics that aren't full of petroleum, aren't full of carbon, to do racing car fuel, to do biomining, and to help people, to help these kind of trapped assets and create hydrogen without any carbon offsets. So they're actually doing things in carbon negative. So it's super exciting to see a different technology converge with this space to make an incredible difference. And that's why we see them partnering with companies like United and Oxy and a bunch of others.
Very cool. So how far along is a company like that when you talk to them?
So they were, I would say C+ to A is when we put our money in, is where we're at. And we're typically like an A/C+. We say A, but when we get to mitigate the technology with either our limited partners or our strategic advisors or our broader network, when we can get comfortable with the technology, we'll go a little bit, not pure C, but like what I would say C+ to A.
Yeah. It seems like critical to the success of a lot of these startups that you'll be investing in is the kind of business development relationships that you already have as, an operator in this fund. So I mean, I guess besides capital, and I'm kind of answering the question with my question, but like, what are the critical kind of support systems that our ecosystem needs to build up to allow sustainability founders to succeed? Since, the capital we know, but like, what else do they need that kind of through the support value chain?
I think similar to what we saw in other industries, when you take that innovation of that entrepreneurial ecosystem and that entrepreneur and combine it with the scale of a large company, that's when you get to have dramatic impact, right? Because of innovation always needs that scale. And that scale that comes through corporate partnerships is a big short circuit to the traditional coaches going out there and slogging through things. So what we try to do is most of our fund, the overall majority of our fund has been raised with strategic limited partners who are these publicly traded utility companies. And we have a customized engagement with each of them and deep integration. So we use that to create a platform for innovation for our portfolio companies, but not just for our portfolio companies, but even other entrepreneurs that we don't invest in. Like if we think it's important to the industry and it might not be right for us for a lot of reasons, maybe it's too early, maybe it's too late, maybe they're looking for too much money that we can do, we'll introduce them to our partners, right? We did that with Ryan and a bunch of his companies and Generator, and we'll continue to do it with others. So that's a little different to what we do. We also lean on our strategic advisors, who are folks from the Undersecretary of the Department of Energy to energy consultants that have 800 consultants working for them, other retired executives from the industry, as well as retired regulators.
Yeah. Well, that is incredibly exciting. And I feel like as we think about just the broader startup ecosystem, trying to help them with more corporate partners, because we have so many incredible companies here that could be buyers of startups. So if anyone's watching this and is in procurement / anything buying technology from buy local, like think about shopping from local startups first, anything from, email marketing tools to natural gas sustainability tech of the future. But I did get a little note that they are done and they've decided who the winner is. So thank you so much for spending this time with us today, and congrats on the fund. Can't wait to see some of the portfolio work that you guys do over the next several years, and can't wait to support you guys. So
thanks for having me. Let us know if we ever do anything for you guys.
Thank you. Okay, well, so with that, we're going to welcome all the founders back to the stage. And then, of course, our judges too. So I'm sure we have someone who's going to announce the winner. Who's announcing the winner today?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Desiree. So this was a really tough deliberation. This were some great companies that we heard from today, and it wasn't an easy decision, but we're really excited to announce that Darren from JustAir is the winner of this TechRise challenge. So thank you, Darren, for what you're working on. We really appreciate the lens of equity and what you're doing to help solve climate change. So thank you very much. Good job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate the opportunity to present the team here, and also all the entrepreneurs. Great work you guys are doing, and excited to keep the good work and good fight going. I'll be in Chicago next week, so look forward to Let's grab a beer, guys. All right.
Well, congrats, Darren, and also to the rest of the founders. Great job. Please remember that this is not a one and done experience. Darren's been on before, and this is his time to win. So we will welcome all of you back. You did an amazing job, and feel so inspired today, especially on Earth Day, by the brilliant minds that are focusing on kind of all facets of climate tech and sustainability, and the kind of justice around that too. So I'm really proud that you are all Chicago connected and made this happen. Thank you as always to Verizon for your support, and we will see you all next week. And thank you, judges. Sorry, I forgot to say that. Thanks, judges.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.